Welcome to Us Crazy Christians, where we uncover Christian myths and Bible misinterpretations with common sense Christianity. I'm your host, William E. Smith. I remember growing up, the book of Revelations used to give me nightmares. One of my goals in life was to do a special effects movie of the book of Revelation. And I still might do that one day. And I gotta remember, it's the book of Revelation, not Revelations. I'm just so used to hearing that and saying it that way, but it's literally the book of Revelation. There is just one revelation. That is the revelation of Jesus Christ. And we're gonna talk about that. To read Revelation was terrifying. As a matter of fact, as a young Christian, I avoided it most of the time. I didn't start trying to read it until I was much older, in my late teens to early adulthood. It was something straight out of a science fiction horror movie. But is it possible that the book of Revelations is a book to not be afraid of? Maybe it's not talking about something that's coming to haunt us in the future, but instead a book to glory in of stuff, things, situations, a time period that we have been redeemed from. Let's get into it. John wrote the book of Revelation while imprisoned on the Isle of Patmos. Some biblical scholars believe that John used symbolic, apocalyptic, or prophetic language in an attempt to confuse his captors. He knew that the Romans wouldn't understand what he was talking about, that all the Hebrews, the Israelites, the Jews would completely understand the language in which he spoke. After all, that argument has a little sense to it, a little validity, in the sense that he was imprisoned by the Romans, and the book of Revelation is talking about the end of Rome, or what Rome is going to do to the children of Israel in the temple, and then their eventual end. Remember the audience relevance video we did about these end time and last days? If you haven't seen that video, I implore you, go back and check it. Matter of fact, I put these videos in a certain order on purpose so to make it the latter ones easier to understand if you watched the ones before. Could it be that Revelation is John's Olivet discourse? If you notice that all the other gospels have Jesus giving his Olivet discourse, where he is talking about the end times, the last days, the destruction of the temple, etc. But the book of John doesn't have it. Is it possible that John did his version of the Olivet discourse in the book of Revelation? In the beginning of this book, the book of Revelation, it says, this is the revelation of Jesus Christ. That sounds like good news to me. But because we have viewed it as a horrible future for ourselves, is it possible that it has blinded us from the good news of this wonderful book? From the good news of the revelation of Jesus Christ, who we as crazy Christians claim to follow? Think about it. The story of Jesus is the gospel of peace. So is it possible that Revelation is the revealing, the exposing, the uncovering of the gospel of peace? If it is, then shouldn't we find peace in the gospel of peace in the book of Revelation? Just something to think about. Revelation says these things will happen soon, repeatedly. It mentions the end of the world, but we've already determined that that was a mistranslation, that it literally means the end of an age or era. Or more specifically, the end of the old covenant age. The Greek word for revelation is apocalypsis, or in our English translation, apocalypse. But it doesn't mean catastrophe, like our modern readers or Hollywood has made it out to seem. It simply means to unveil or uncover what has been hidden or unseen. Could the book of Revelation simply be the unveiling or uncovering of the good news of Jesus Christ? Is it possible that most of the end times, end of the era, destruction talk about in the Revelations and in Matthew and Peter and the Old Testament is talking about AD 70, when the temple is destroyed, when Jerusalem, Israel, is destroyed. When everything Jesus said would happen actually happened historically. There are historical documents that can verify the fulfillment of the prophecies that Jesus talked about. But because it's not written in the Bible, which was written before 70 AD, we don't want to look at anything outside of the Bible. But is it possible that all of that was fulfilled in 70 AD within a generation, just like Jesus said? The best argument I've heard against that idea of 70 AD is the argument that Revelation, the book of Revelation, was written after 70 AD. And there are many different debates about that and different ways to prove that it's false. But the one to me that stands out the most is literally in Scripture. How John speaks of things that are currently happening, like who the current Caesar is. And we talk more detail about this in the Mark of the Beast video that we're due, so check that out. He talks about who the current Caesar is, who the Caesars were before that, who the one will be after that, and it's all historically accurate. And it happened within a time frame of his writing of the book. Also, he mentions Israel still being a nation and getting destroyed. If it was written after 70 AD, when that actually happened in history, why would he write that? He would be talking to people about something that already happened, and he would be talking like it never did. That doesn't even make sense. So obviously he wrote it before 70 AD, and I think it's written somewhere around between 64 AD and 68 AD, which is within a decade of the destruction of the temple and the end of the era that the Bible talks about. Research it for yourself. Now, surely John was present and heard Jesus give the Olivet Discourse just like the other synoptic writers of the Gospels. Yet he didn't include that long prophecy in his gospel. Then many years later, while imprisoned on the Isle of Patmos, Jesus visits him with a much more detailed and expressive view of that same Olivet Discourse. A more detailed and dramatic version. Maybe one of the main reasons John was finally writing his Olivet Discourse was because Jesus needed to give his church a comforting update within the last decade of its fulfillment. From AD 30 to AD 70, the church suffered terrible persecution at the hands of the Jewish temple leaders. This greatly intensified in AD 64 through 68 under Nero, who made it his goal to completely annihilate Christianity. During this very difficult time, the church needed encouragement, comforting from Jesus. They needed a reassurance that he would be coming back soon. And that is just what the book of Revelation gave them. Throughout Revelation, God tells his followers to be patient because his justice, wrath, and vengeance will be there to save them soon. In Dr. Lin Howe's book, The Revelation of Jesus Christ, he says, the book of Revelations is not about dreadful beasts and scary monsters. It's an ongoing revelation of Jesus Christ and God's redemptive plan. The more you understand the book of Revelation, the more you will be disarmed of the fears, intimidations, and rhetoric, a flood of misinformation flowing from the dragon's mouth. In fact, the book of Revelation is the only book in the Bible that declares blessing in the reading and understanding of it. The only book. If you want more detailed studies and breakdowns of the book of Revelation, I encourage you to check out Dr. Lin Howe's and Dr. Jonathan Welton. They both have books and YouTube stuff you can look up about Revelations, the Rapture, etc. I wanted to give it an overview and give you maybe an alternative view to remove the fear and dread of the book of Revelations so we can see Jesus Christ in every book. If you want to see more from us crazy Christians, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. If you're a returning guest and haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? It's free. Plus, hit the notifications bell to be notified every time we post a new video. Thanks for watching us Crazy Christians. Until next time, be blessed.